10 of the fakest moments that exposed WWE. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Number 10, WWE Cameraman exposes all. On one of the top matches on the 2015 Payback card saw John Cena take on Rusev. The match would act as a blow-off to their feud and the two would wrestle in a brutal I Quit match. While Cena and Rusev did an excellent job in the match, the same can't be said for the WWE Cameraman, who completely exposed one of the biggest spots in the match. The spot in question saw Cena perform an AA on Rusev on the stage. Obviously this was done on a crash pad, and the idea behind the spot was that the cameraman wouldn't show that a crash pad was visible behind a section of the staging. In a reckless move, the cameraman shot the crash pad in clear view, so the secret behind the spot was instantly exposed. This would have no doubt caused utter bedlam backstage, and Vince McMahon would have likely given the cameraman a stern telling off. Number 9, Bronson Reed's selling of nothing. One of Braun Strowman's signature spots as a pro wrestler sees him run around the ring and tackle anyone in sight. When Strowman did this on Raw in June of 2024, Strowman set his eyes on Bronson Reed, only for Strowman to fail to make any contact with one of the WWE's biggest titans. While Strowman isn't supposed to pull all his weight into the tactical spot, he is supposed to make some contact, so the spot looks at least somewhat real. Unfortunately, this didn't happen, and Reed had to sell a move that made no contact whatsoever. Fans were quick to call out Reed for the botch, yet the blame ultimately fell to Strowman. In relation to Reed, he had no choice in the matter, as it would have been insanely awkward if Reed just stood there and no-sold his spot. Number 8, Linda McMahon tries to take a stunner. Linda McMahon was never a trained performer, so whenever McMahon had to take part in any type of physicality in WWE, it was often unintentionally hilarious. When McMahon was booked to take a Stone Cold Stunner in 2005, McMahon's sell of the move was so unbelievably funny that even Austin himself couldn't help but smile. The infamous moment took place on the highly anticipated Raw Homecoming show, as Austin delivered a trademark stunner to every single member of the McMahon family, and when it came to Linda McMahon, Austin was noticeably careful with how he handled her. Austin made virtually no contact with the move, and McMahon sold the move by falling into the canvas as if she'd just fallen off the couch. Number 7, Chris Jericho misses. One of Chris Jericho's first feuds back following his return in 2007 was with JBL. The two embarked in a bitter blood feud, and they would have a pay-per-view showdown at the 2008 Royal Rumble. Their chemistry was awkward and flat, and a major contributing factor was that JBL had been on commentary for an extended period, so both men had a ton of ring rust. The ring rust came to surface when Jericho went for a bulldog on JBL and completely missed his move. In a rare botch from JBL, JBL decided to sell as if Jericho had made contact. The pay-per-view match took place in front of a rabid Madison Square Garden crowd, and of course, the fans ate the two alive. The two managed to continue as if nothing had happened, but it was likely a moment that the two former world champions couldn't easily forget. Number 6, The Undertaker makes zero contact. When The Undertaker vs John Cena was set for WrestleMania 34, fans were elated. The fact that there hadn't been a WrestleMania match yet was truly baffling, and now fans expected a classic matchup that could redeem the dead man after a rather lackluster match the year prior. The match itself ended up being a total squash, and this isn't what anybody wanted. The disappointment extended to Undertaker himself, who had trained for a featured matchup, but it was Vince McMahon who believed that the match should have been an outright squash. Outside of the length of the match, one of the talking points of the match itself was a huge botch from both men. The botch occurred when The Undertaker went for a big boot, and it clearly missed Cena by a good mile. Cena obviously sold the move and the match continued on, but due to the quick pacing of the match, both men likely hoped that nobody noticed, but sadly it was far too obvious to ignore. Number 5, the Black Mass botch. Whilst NXT is often mid-labeled as WWE's developmental brand, the in-ring product has sometimes vastly overshadowed anything on the main roster. This is mainly thanks to WWE signing top independent talent for the roster and having them mix it up with young upcoming stars that WWE have manufactured in the Performance Center. The idea behind the feud between NXT champion Aleister Black and Lars Sullivan was to put Sullivan in there with a seasoned pro and hopefully elevate him to the next level. The two would face off at NXT TakeOver Chicago 2, and for the most part, Lars did a great job in the match. Unfortunately, towards the end of the match, the title showdown seemed to fall apart. Black went for his trademark finisher, the Black Mass, and it completely missed, but Lars for some reason sold it anyway. I wouldn't be drastic to say that this one botch ruined the entire matchup, as it drew all attention away from the positives of the match, as all anyone could focus on was the major botch. Number 4, Big Show takes an RKO. The RKO is arguably one of the most famous finishing moves of all time, and one of the great things about the popular move is that it's incredibly easy for wrestlers to take it. The move requires a simple front face bump, meaning that Orton can perform the move on anyone with ease. However, one RKO that Orton no doubt wishes to erase from his memory took place during a match against Big Show on the February 13th, 2012 edition of Raw. In the match between the two wrestling greats, Orton went for an RKO on Big Show, and just as Orton was about to get a hold of Show's head to deliver the move, Show took the bump for the move prematurely. It was an awkward visual, and Big Show, who always prides himself on delivering a stellar performance, was probably beating himself up backstage. Number 3. Natalia pulls her hand away. The hot tag is one of the most exciting parts of a tag team match, and for it to work, all wrestlers in the match must have their wits about them and must ensure that they time their planned spot correctly. When Natalia teamed with Charlotte Flair to take on the Kabuki Warriors on Raw in 2019, Natalia had no choice but to go off script due to Kairi Sane missing her cue. Due to Sane missing her cue, Natalia had no choice but to retract her hand backwards whilst waiting for a tag from Flair, and this was so blatantly obvious to the viewer. In defense of Natalia, she had little choice. If Natalia had tagged in, the entire hope spot that was scripted for the match would have been messed up, so it probably was in her best interest to act in the manner that she did. But with that being said, it would have been much better if the camera didn't show her retracting her hand in clear view. Number 2. The Undertaker is seen shoveling. The Buried Alive match between The Undertaker and Vince McMahon in 2003 was designed to write the American Badass off television. The dead man was going to spend a considerable amount of time off TV, and this would allow him to rest, heal nagging injuries, and grow his hair out ahead of the return of his dead man persona. The match between The Undertaker and McMahon was a one-sided affair, but that was until the dastardly Kane interfered. Kane would assist McMahon and would allow McMahon to upset The Undertaker in one of the most shocking moments of the Ruthless Aggression era. Whilst all three men played their part well, WWE's production team failed in their role to hide the secrets of the Buried Alive match type. Towards the end of the match, it was clear, thanks to WWE literally showing it on screen, that The Undertaker was using a shovel in the grave to access the trap door. A couple of camera shots after this, the camera once again panned to the grave, and this time The Undertaker was selling, but the shovel had mysteriously gone missing. This completely exposed one of WWE's most well-known gimmick matches, and it was all down to incompetent camera work. And number 1, Whisper in the Wind, literally. The greatest Royal Rumble pay-per-view, which took place in Saudi Arabia, featured a botch that made WWE look like a cheap independent show. In a lackluster US title match featuring champion Jeff Hardy and Jinder Mahal, Hardy went for the Whisper in the Wind, but sadly the move didn't connect at all, and Hardy landed about 2 feet away from Mahal. The botch was made even worse by the fact that Mahal decided to take a comedic bump and sell the move despite the move clearly not even connecting. It was abysmal work from Mahal, and in a moment of sheer panic, Hardy decided the best thing to do in the moment was to attempt a cover, which was probably the most sensible course of action. But there you have it, folks. 10 of the fakest moments that exposed WWE. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.